We've all heard the standard advice: make sure you get enough carbohydrates, make sure you're eating enough, and don't forget to fuel your runs. We've all heard that generic advice, but today I'm going to share with you my top 5 tips that are a little bit different than just the standard advice that is given to everybody by coaches and other athletes out there. Hi, I'm Rachel. I have been running for over 15 years and I became a nutritionist a few years ago when I just got fed up of kind of not really understanding nutrition, never being able to get straight answers, and just thinking that there must be a better way out there than what I was currently doing. So make sure you stay tuned to the end of this video for my top 5 actionable steps that you can put into place today to help your running be more efficient. So the first thing that I want to talk to you about today is to prioritize your micronutrients. We're so focused on making sure we get enough carbohydrates in, making sure we get enough protein in, that it's really, really easy to forget about micronutrients. So micronutrients are all those vitamins and minerals that are found within things like fruits and veggies. So we're talking things like iron, calcium, vitamins D, E, A, all of those. These are really, really essential for just overall health and nutrition, but are specifically important if you are working out and you're running quite a bit, like a lot of us probably are. So they are involved in things like energy production and immune function, as well as things like muscle contractions. So they are really, really essential to what we are doing as runners. Now, I don't have time in this video to cover all of them, so I am going to cover just a few key ones that as runners we need to be focusing on. The first one is iron. So we can find iron in animal-based products, and we can also find iron in some plant foods like dark leafy greens, lentils contain some. Iron is a vital component that we need as runners, and it's a huge part of our sort of hemoglobin that just helps oxygen get carried around in our red blood cells. So adequate iron levels are crucial for things like preventing fatigue, preventing injury, and also just helping us maintain our endurance on our longer runs. Long distance runners, especially females, are more susceptible to iron deficiency than their male counterparts. This is largely due to the female menstruation cycle and us obviously bleeding and losing iron during that menstruation period. However, that doesn't mean men are not susceptible to iron deficiency, and they do need to be aware of this as well. So ensuring you get adequate levels of iron in your diet will help things like your aerobic ability and your endurance. So it's really, really key that we are making sure we're getting this micronutrient included. The other micronutrients that can be really, really important for runners are vitamin D and calcium. Vitamin D and calcium are essential nutrients for runners as well. Calcium is a mineral that is found in dairy products as well as some sort of dark leafy greens, but it provides structural support to bones, while vitamin D helps us absorb that calcium into our body. So if we have a vitamin D deficiency, we are more likely to be deficient in calcium because our body is not absorbing it correctly. Those who eat dairy products are likely to be getting adequate amount of calcium within their diet. However, some of the dairy substitutes such as almond milk and soy products do not always have the same quantities of calcium as the dairy products do. So if you are following a plant-based diet, just ensure you are checking the quantity of calcium that is in your milk substitute. But insufficient calcium and vitamin D can lead to weakness in bones and an increase of risk of stress fractures, which can be a common injury among runners. The final micronutrient I'm going to talk to you about today is the omega-3 fatty acids. So omega-3 fatty acids are a type of polyunsaturated fat, and it plays a crucial role in reducing inflammation within our bodies. It can help support health, especially heart health, and it can also improve joint function. Running, especially at high intensities, can lead to inflammation and kind of oxidative stress. So omega-3s help counteract these effects and potentially reducing recovery times as well as minimizing the risk of injury. So one of the things you can be doing to help support and make sure you are getting enough micronutrients in your diet is to make sure you are eating a colourful variety of fruits and vegetables, and we want to be aiming for about 30 different plant products within our diet in a week. That sounds like a huge amount, but when you think a bag of mixed nuts could contain 5 or 6 different types of nuts, and therefore you are getting 5 or 6 different plant foods in one go. My second tip for the day is focused on optimizing our protein intake. Protein is generally something we associate with like strength athletes and perhaps people who are dieting, but protein is really essential for endurance runners, and endurance runners can find themselves needing the same levels of protein in their diet as a strength-based athlete. This is due to the fact that protein is made up of amino acids, and amino acids are the building blocks that our muscles are made of. The repetitive motion of endurance running, or just running in general, can cause lots of sort of little micro tears and micro damage to our muscles in the same way that weightlifting can. So we need to be consuming adequate amount of protein to ensure that we can rebuild and regrow the muscle damage that we're doing by the repetitive motion of running. So making sure we get an adequate amount of protein in our diet will help us with recovery, muscle growth and muscle strength, all of which are essential for runners as they are for strength athletes. So when we're talking about protein, we generally hear sort of essential amino acids mentioned. So essential amino acids are the amino acids that our bodies cannot make and we have to get from food substitutes. So in that we have complete protein sources and incomplete protein sources. So complete protein sources are generally animal-based protein sources such as a piece of meat, and these contain all essential amino acids that we need within our bodies. Then we get incomplete protein sources, and these are usually more plant-based protein sources like beans, legumes, those types of products. And they generally don't contain all essential amino acids in one product. And so we need to eat different types of products either together or throughout the day to ensure that we are getting that complete essential amino acid profile. Now this can be really easily done. It can be something as easy as mixing your kind of beans with some bread, and that would make it into a complete protein source and ensuring that we are getting all the essential amino acids that way. So the biggest piece of advice that I can give when it comes to protein is just making sure we're eating a range of protein sources and that we're not focusing on just one type of thing. So for it's still important for sort of people who eat meat, animal-based products such as meat, to be including some vegetable protein in their diet, because the vegetables are really important for our sort of fibre intake. But if you are following a plant-based diet, make sure that throughout the course of the day, you are getting a number of different types of protein sources in. So maybe you're eating some beans, you're also eating some legumes, you're including some grains, and this will help ensure that you are getting that complete range of protein within your diet within a day. This wouldn't be a nutrition tips video without a quick mention to hydration. So as point number 3, I just want to mention hydration and why it is so important. So when we talk about hydration, we're not just talking about water. So it's not just making sure you're getting enough water in your diet. It's also making sure you are getting enough electrolytes such as sodium and potassium as part of that. Without the electrolytes, we are not able to retain as much of that water as we need to, and it can leave our bodies a lot faster and is not actually staying where it needs to stay. So electrolyte balances in our diet are really important to prevent against things such as muscle cramps, because it helps in that kind of contracting of muscle groups. So when we talk about hydration, we do need to be careful of both dehydration and overhydrating, and these generally have very similar signs and symptoms. So some of the signs and symptoms of dehydration can be things like a dark coloured urine, headache, lack of concentration, confusion, And the problem we have is that the signs and symptoms of overhydration are also things like headache, confusion, and vomiting can also be included there. So it can be challenging to know the difference as to whether we are overhydrated or underhydrated. So we know the kind of rule of thumb is to drink 8 to 10 cups of water per day, although this doesn't necessarily have to be water and can include things like squash, tea and coffee if we're not drinking too much of it. So it can include all of those. But when we're running or working out, we want to be including additional hydration on top of this 8 to 10 cups a day. As a general rule of thumb, for every hour of exercise, we want to be including sort of 10 to 16 ounces of water or hydration per hour. This is 0.4 to 0.8 litres for those who use that measurement. And within this, we also want to be including electrolytes. Now, electrolytes vary hugely depending on the individual. Some people are very salty sweaters, other people are not that salty sweaters. The good thing about that is we generally lose electrolytes at the same rate. So let's say you were to lose 100 micrograms of sodium in every sort of 1,000 mils of sweat. You will always lose it in that ratio. So it's not that the more you sweat, the more electrolytes you need. It's simply we keep the ratio the same in the fluid that we are consuming. So as a very rough guide, we're aiming to consume between 300 to 800 milligrams of sodium per hour during our workouts. Now, as I said, this is very, very unique, and there are tests out there you can do that will tell you how much sodium and sort of electrolytes you need per hour. For example, I know that I am a very salty sweater, and so I take on higher levels of electrolytes during and after my workouts than perhaps some other runners do out there. So tip number 5, and my final tip of the day, is to balance our macronutrient ratios. So when we sit down to eat a meal, we want to be getting a range of macronutrients within that meal for a number of different reasons. So carbohydrates are obviously essential for athletes, especially endurance runners, because they will help us replenish our glycogen stores. We also want to be including protein for all the reasons that we have already discussed. We do also need to be including healthy fats within our diet. Now, healthy fats in their own carry essential nutrients that we need, but they are also key in helping our body absorb fat-soluble vitamins, such as vitamins A, D, E, and K. So we do need to be including fats within our diet to help us absorb those micronutrients, some of which we spoke about earlier. But another reason to do this is healthy fats can actually help us feel more satiated at meals, and therefore we're likely to not come away from it with the munchies an hour later because we're satiated by the meal that we have had. It can be a little bit difficult to know what a balanced plate looks like. So as an average, we're going to say when you're looking at your plate, you want to have roughly 1/3 carbohydrates, 1/3 protein, and 1/3 fruit and veggies, along with 1 to 2 tablespoons of healthy fats. Now, this is just a rough guide, and depending on where you are in your day and the workouts you're doing, those ratios between them may vary slightly. I did call that tip number 5, but actually it was tip number 4. So the final tip that we're going to discuss today is the timing of our meals. Specifically, the timing of our meals after our workout. So what we eat and when we eat can help optimize our performance. So for pre-workout, we're looking at kind of 2 to 3 hours before, and it needs to be a balanced meal. But today we're going to focus on that post-workout section. So meal timing here is really, really important for ensuring that we can replenish the replenish the glycogen stores that we have lost, and also help that muscle protein synthesis start with the recovery of that repairing our muscles that have potentially picked up some damage from the workout that we have just been doing. So we've kind of got two main windows that we're going to talk about. So we want to be aiming to get some sort of nutrition in within 30 minutes of finishing our workouts, especially the more high intense workouts or longer workouts. This doesn't need to be much. I personally find that I am not very hungry once I have finished running. So we're only really looking at consuming somewhere between 100 to 300 calories. And this can be in liquid form. So personally, I find flavoured milk a really, really good thing to consume straight after my workout because I'm just not hungry at that point. So drinking something helps me get that recovery nutrition in a really, really good ratio of carbs to protein without feeling full or just feeling sick. The second one is we want to consume a slightly larger meal or snack within about 2 hours of finishing, but for some people this could be up to 3. And that one, again, is really just to help us get that protein in that we desperately need to help our muscles recover, and also really, really focus on that replenishing of carbohydrates so that we can get our glycogen stores stocked up ready for our next run. So my top 5 actionable tips would be to diversify your fruit and veg intake as much as possible and aim to get 30 different plant sources of food in your diet every week. This doesn't need to be as difficult as you think because things like bread, it's a grain, so it is a plant source. And as we said, a handful of mixed nuts could contain 5 or 6 different plant sources. Actionable tip 2 is just to include a variety of protein sources within your diet. This is essential if you are a plant-based athlete, as you need to be making sure you are getting all 13 essential amino acids within your day. Tip number 3 is to check out the rate of electrolytes you lose while sweating and working out, so that you can include these into your recovery plan and prevent things like cramps from occurring. Tip number 4 is to really get that balanced plate of nutrition in with roughly 1/3 carbs, 1/3 protein and 1/3 fruit and veg with 1 to 2 tablespoons of fat. This is just a starting point, but is a really, really good place to just aim for. And tip number 5 is to plan your post-run recovery so that you have something ready and easy to consume when you get back, so that you can start that recovery process and get those muscles recovered and those glycogen stores starting to be replenished as soon as you get through the door. If you want to hear more about recovery, then there will be a link in the description below for you to download my top 5 recovery mistakes that I see runners making. If you have found this video helpful, then please don't forget to like and subscribe, as it really helps this content get seen. See you in the next video. Bye.